It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, folks, today we're going to jump in that gigantic, sharp, interactive board. I want to share my thoughts on Kyocera's FY 2025, which ended for Kyocera in March of 2025. If you look at the top of the screen, it says Kyocera 18 years. Wow, what a metric. You know, I was going through Kyocera's financial, and I went through all of their presentations all the way back to 2007, and I discovered something. So without any further ado, let's jump on the board. Top line revenue for Kyocera for FY 2025 was $13.8 billion. Had an operating profit of $187.1 million, 1.4%. I do got the red pen out. I do have to circle that. I do have to scream at Kyocera, what the hell are you doing? This is unusual for you. Times are tough, right? A lot of things going on. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, do you realize that I went back to the year 2007, looked at every single one of Kyocera's financial presentations? And do you realize in those 18 years, they have never been below the line in operating profit? Never. They've never ended the year below the line. I mean, I had to look at it like 4 times. That is amazing. I don't even know if anybody else could say that. I mean, that is truly an amazing thing. And if you work at Kyocera, you need to give yourself a pat on the back. And the industry needs to applaud you and share some respect for Kyocera. And I realized that 2025 was a terrible year for Kyocera. I mean, 1.4% operating profit and a 1.2% profit attributed owners. It was not a good year by any stretch of the imagination. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, it's because Kyocera has discipline, not just, every couple years. They have discipline every single quarter. And they're rifle focused on making sure they can be as profitable as they can. 2025, they had to make some decisions around some impairments and things. But at the end of the day, I went back as far as I could, 2007. The worst year, by the way, for operating profit for Kyocera since 2007 was in 2009. The company had an operating profit of 3.8%. And of course, 2025, 1.4%. So obviously, Kyocera is well aware of this. But they also need to be applauded for what a run. What a run. Amazing. I want to look at the Document Solutions Group. I went back 9 years. And folks, over the last 9 years, the lowest operating profit ratio I could find in the Document Solutions Group was 7.8% in 2023. That was the lowest they ever had in 2023. From 2017 to 2025, the lowest operating profit ratio they've ever had was 7.8% in those 9 years. It's totally amazing. And when Kyocera tells you all, hey, when the mothership's having some hiccups, we're doing really well in the Document Solutions Group, they're actually telling you the truth. And they can prove it to you because they get really good operating profit. By the way, Kyocera's FY 2025 for a company was the worst in operating profit that I could find all the way back to 2007. Well, guess what? In the Document Solutions Group, the operating profit was 10.2%. They had $3.3 billion in top-line revenue in the Document Solutions Group. The operating profit was $335.8 million, or 10.2%. If you work in the Document Solutions Group at Kyocera, you need to pat yourself on the back because you saved the company from going into the red. The other group that did well with operating profit was Industrial Automotive Component Unit, $172.5 million in operating profit, or 10.7%. Their hiccups, Semiconductor, $191.9 million operating profit loss. Components, $5.6 million loss. Others, impairment charges, $324.3 million in operating profit loss. But they still came out, profit attributed to owners, at $165.6 million, 1.2%. They're not below the line, but I assure you, 2025 has gotten Kyocera's attention. I assure you. They're not gonna accept the fact that they can lose money. They're gonna get very, very tough across all divisions. It's just the way they are because they're disciplined. And quite honestly, I don't think enough of the OEMs get tough enough when they need to. Ladies and gentlemen, they're forecasting a 2.9% operating profit for FY 2026. And, that'll be their second lowest operating profit if they hit that number since 2007. That tells you that these conglomerates are really reevaluating the things they're doing. And Kyocera is doing these things. When you read through their whole entire presentation, you see they're looking at M&A activities. They're looking at R&D activities. They're looking at what can they divest themselves of. And those crazy rumors that they're going to divest themselves of print is just ridiculous. And I know that Kyocera's already addressed that, but Kyocera obviously saved the company from going into the red. I don't think they're going to do anything but help that print business, that Document Solutions Group, grow and be more profitable, right? I wanted to look at their asset to equity ratio. It's 72%. Only 28% of Kyocera's assets are encumbered in any way. But here's the other thing, and I've talked about this a lot because a lot of the Japanese conglomerates, their percentage of assets that are goodwill and intangible is way too high. 20%, 23%. In Kyocera's case, it's 9.5% under that 10%, which I think is the limit. They're under it. Congratulations there, Kyocera. I wanted to show this slide of Konica Minolta and Kyocera. Kyocera just had their worst year in 18 years, and they didn't lose any money. Konica Minolta's lost money year after year after year. It's just crazy, right? Crazy. There's no comparison here. The discipline of the company, there's no comparison here. And the reason I want to share my thoughts on this is because for way too long, especially here in the United States, Konica Minolta was put on this pedestal. And I don't believe they should have been on that pedestal for the last few years. I believe the industry's media and analysts should have held Konica Minolta a whole lot more accountable. And maybe they'd actually be performing. But they didn't. Konica Minolta sees itself as one of the top 5 in the industry. I don't think they are. I think they've been knocked off that pedestal by organizations like Kyocera and even Sharp. We need to start looking at these other organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, if you look at Konica Minolta's print business, their MFP and their printer business, and you take away that DWDX business, Konica Minolta in their FY 2024, which ended March of 2025, they did $3.6 billion in MFPs and office printers. If you look at Kyocera, they did $3.3 billion. So let's be honest here. Konica Minolta is not that much bigger in office MFPs and office printers than Kyocera. And Kyocera, now I'm going to scream at you about something. I'm going to keep screaming at you about something until you do what I want you to do, and hopefully you'll do it. Break out your numbers. Tell us what you're doing in industrial print, and tell us what you're doing in the Task Alpha 15000C print, the production print. Show us those numbers. Be proud of them. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing better than the whole world helping you manage by your numbers. But Kyocera, you have a great opportunity to compete really, really hard against Konica Minolta. I believe Konica Minolta is a floundering fish. And at the end of the day, in a depressed marketplace, ripe for disruption, it's going to be those weaker players that get gobbled up by those with more strength. In Kyocera, you have the abilities. I was going through their presentation and they talk about structural reforms and all this. Let me just read this one paragraph to you so you can get your head around how I believe Kyocera is thinking. Restructure business portfolio in all reporting segments. Promote optimization of business size and amount of growth investments such as M&A and R&D activities from the perspective of investment efficiency and competitiveness. They got to be more competitive. What do we put our R&D money in? What do we do around M&A? Well, if I think about the print business and I think about R&D, I think about M&A, I think of a couple of things. And folks, back in 2000, Kyocera acquired Kyocera Media Corporation. And they brought these two companies together. And they looked at the capabilities of both of these companies and they started making really, really cool machines, right? They started getting beefier machines. They started becoming a real competitor in that A3 and A4 space. And then since then, what do? They came out with that Task Alpha 15000C. Changed the game in production, inkjet production. They didn't go and say, hey, other OEM, let us just rebadge your machine. No, they came out with their own and they disrupted the high production print with inkjet. They just introduced the 55000C inkjet. They have some of the best inkjet technology around textile printing. They're really good with inkjet, is my point. Kyocera, give that damn bird something to sing about. You got the 15000C. I've been screaming about this for a long time. You got to bring your inkjet technology to the MFP world. You got to bring it to your desktop printer world. You got to bring it not only in color but in black and white and be disruptive and change the game. You talk about R&D, that's where you put your R&D in the Document Solutions Group. Put it there. Get really aggressive at it. And come disrupt the marketplace, because you have a myth of laser that you could replace with inkjet. You could get the whole world to think differently about office print. Kyocera, I'm telling you, you could do it. Kyocera talked about their new distribution center in Pennsylvania. By the way, Kyocera, I want to go check that place out. But, you know, they're positioned to be a major player here in the U.S. They're positioned to be a major player all over the world, especially if they came into the marketplace with inkjet. Let's talk about this Etra company real quick. So Ricoh, Toshiba Tech get together. Oki joins it. I still believe Canon's going to join that thing, but who is going to join it next? And Kyocera, what the hell are you going to do about it? Are you going to compete with these people or what? You know, I had to say that kind of aggressively because somebody's got to do something. You know, you got Fujifilm out there. You got Sharp and Foxconn. You got Kyocera. You got Xerox buying Lexmark. You got all kinds of things going on, but we need another manufacturer consolidation. Maybe it's Kyocera. Kyocera, you know, Xerox buys Lexmark. I don't believe they ever want to make any machines, right? Is there some synergies you can do with Xerox? Kyocera, is there some synergies you can form with my friends at Rizzo? Sure you can. You know, Kyocera and Rizzo are kind of frenemies, but there's a lot of things they could do together. If they could get strategic. If they could think past what was going on yesterday and create a better tomorrow. When I think about Konica Minolta, you know what I think about? A floundering fish, as I already said? Kyocera. Could you imagine if you were the one that gobbled up Konica Minolta? Could you imagine if Kyocera was the one? That was their M&A around the Document Solutions Group. Let's go take out the weakest link, Konica Minolta. Kyocera, you got a lot of opportunities. Just like all the other actors in our industry. I want to congratulate you for staying above the line for 18 years. But I want to caution you because 2025 is not a good year. 2026, you know, you're seeing that you're going to have some more struggles. It's going to be really critical how you play the game. Kyocera, let's play some chess. Let the other folks play checkers. Because everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.